Hello, it's Peter Wright and Kathleen Beauvais in Ontario, Canada, with episode number 166 of the Yakking Show. This is the show to awaken you to new perspectives, to help you better navigate and survive the changing world we're living in. And it's certainly changing as we speak. So, as always, we have interesting guests, but it's not my job to introduce guests. Kathleen does it a lot better than I do. First, welcome, Kathleen. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Peter. Thank you so much. And thank you also very much for tuning into our show. We so appreciate you and we love reading your comments. So please keep those coming. And if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And as Peter mentioned, we do have another special guest with us today. Her name is Margaret High. She's an author and she's the owner of Just in Case, which helps people set up their testamentary wishes. So this is going to be a very interesting show for anyone out there contemplating preparing wills or powers of attorneys. Loads of information here. So welcome, Margaret. How are you today?
Oh, thank you very much for having me on the show. I'm great today.
Oh, wonderful. So Margaret, for the sake of our audience, can you give us a little bit about your background and how it is that you came to set up Just in Case?
Wow. I don't have any legal background. The reason why I did start this was because of my own personal experience. I would think it was about 2012. My mother had a stroke. She was in her 90s, just celebrated a birthday, and everything was doing well for her. Like she was okay as far as her physical and everything was concerned. She had her own apartment. She had a trailer, so she was camping a lot. So, we didn't expect her to get ill. But what happened was she had a stroke. Mm-hmm. And it was while she was camping. I was at the trailer because mine was kind of kitty corner across from hers. She was supposed to come for lunch, didn't show up. So I went to see if she was okay. Found her kind of slumped over, and automatically I knew something serious was going on. So we called the ambulance and we ended up in emergency hospital. That was the beginning of a horrific time. And if anybody can relate to having somebody you love, a parent or a loved one, in an emergency hospital, it's a very chaos and confusing and stressful time. So they were working on my mother. While they were working on my mother, they were barking orders, do this, do that. And then the nurse kept asking me questions like, what medication is she on? Does she have a DNR? Are you the power of attorney? And your mind is kind of racing. And yes, I'm the power of attorney. And yes, I bought her medications with me. So thank goodness I thought of that at the time. And DNR we never really talked about. Do not resuscitate is what it is. And when somebody is, I guess, of a certain age, that's something that they should discuss, but we never did. They explained to me at the time that because of her age, if we had to resuscitate her, it would cause more harm than good, because apparently they do a lot of internal damage and whatnot when they try to bring somebody back. So thank goodness we didn't have to go that route, but I'm sure some people might have to make that decision, and it's not an easy one to make. So the doctor informed us that her stroke was very severe. And again, because of her age, she may not make it through to maybe go and get things put in order. And I knew what that meant. So I had to go back to her apartment and try and find a copy of her will and power of attorney. I knew she had it. I was with her years prior when we got it done. So, it was crazy. Couldn't find it anywhere in her apartment. We wasted so much time and energy trying to find it. Couldn't find a copy of her will, power of attorney anywhere. Added more stress. To make a long story short, what happened there was she probably misplaced it over the years. And apparently the lawyer that did up the original will and power of attorney had passed away. And I couldn't find who took over his practice. Again, more stress. What do I do now? Oh my goodness. She did survive the stroke. She ended up paralyzed on her left side and eventually ended up in long-term care. At that time, we had to get another will and power of attorney done, which added extra expense. Thank goodness that she could write her name. And thank goodness that she did have her senses about it, because that's what got me thinking. It's like, gee, what if she had a past and we didn't have it done? What if she couldn't sign her name? What if the stroke had affected her sense, that she didn't know what to do or anything like that? So it was all those things that came to mind was like, oh my gosh, I have to, I'm sure other people go through things like this, go through the loved one being in the hospital, and maybe some people might have Alzheimer's and they can't do that. So I kind of, it made my mission to try and reach as many people possible to at least get something done. And that's where it started. I started with a book, and then it ended up, you know what, maybe you should make things a lot easier for people by doing the whole thing for them. So that's where I started on that.
Out of curiosity, Margaret, you said that when she went into a long-term care facility, you needed to do another will.
Yes.
Why was that necessary?
Well, the first one we didn't have. So in order to do things like, for instance, for instance, somebody passes away in Ontario without a will, power of attorney, they call it intestate. So what happens there is the Ontario Succession Law Reform Act will make a decision who takes care of your stuff, who distributes it.
I thought.
So if you don't have a will.
I thought she had a will.
No. Well, she did at one time, but we couldn't find it because the lawyer had the original copy, and I think she misplaced it.
Okay.
So we couldn't find it.
Oh.
And so that kind of, then we had to get another one done just to make everything as legal as we can. But yeah, that was a lot of stress and hard work to get that done.
Wow. So Margaret, you've explained very well with your example why it's so important for people to have a will and to have a power of attorney, but equally why it's so important that whoever's going to look after the estate knows where those documents are. I was really lucky. My mother died soon after she got to 90, and she lived in England and I was here. But on my last visit, 2 weeks before she died, she said, that's where all my documents are, in that drawer. So you don't have to mess about. You just go to that drawer. If you're not here, your brother or my niece. And she had everything, all her bank account numbers, private, everything prepared in that drawer. So for us, it was really lucky. So, but thank you for that. I experienced the better side than you did by being able to find the documents. So well done. Back to Kathleen.
How did it make you feel knowing that everything was done?
Oh, well, she told me that on my last visit. And she also said to me, you've got to promise me you're not going to waste money coming all the way across the ocean just to put me in the ground. And I said, no, I won't do that. But yes, just knowing that it was organized and she didn't leave a lot of headaches. The sad thing, and this is worth mentioning from a human interest angle, she'd also been compiling a list of people to phone and tell when she died, right? And she lived to 90. And when it came to that, and my brother asked me to do some of the phone calls and letter writing, I would say 2/3 of that list had already been crossed off because they died before her. So isn't that quite a shock when you think about it? So, but I'm sure you deal with that. You're going to tell us how you deal with that with your clients as well. So that's enough from me. Back to Kathleen.
Well, you were touching on this when I asked you the question about your mother and having a new will. So why is it so important for people to have a will and a power of attorney?
Well, again, it's important because for the fact of, if you don't have it, then strangers will come in and make the decisions for you. And I don't want strangers to come in from the Law Reform Act to make those decisions. Maybe you want to leave something to your family members, to your grandchildren, to your church or to whatever. And if it's not down in writing, if it's not in a will, it doesn't necessarily get done. And if somebody comes in from the outside to make those decisions for you, it may not get done the way you want it either. And I mean, like, there's another issue too. If you're in a common law relationship and you don't have a will, no matter how many years you're together, your spouse doesn't get anything. And you can Google that. That's online. Like it strictly says the common law do not inherit under the Succession Law Reform Act. They do not inherit anything automatically. So, you know, it's important to get things down. If you want to leave something to somebody, get it in writing, put it in a will. You know, it's just protecting you and your family, actually.
Mm-hmm. So how can you sensitively persuade an elderly relative to prepare a will and
That is
ask
the
for
hardest.
yes, I'm noticing that with some family relatives right now. Just to bring it up, it's a little bit of a challenge because I notice that they tend to get very defensive. They don't want to share. They think this is personal information. It's none of your business. So I find, yeah, any advice there?
Oh my gosh, that's one thing I've been fighting with for so many years with this just in case kit. Family members don't want to talk about it because their mind automatically goes back to dying and passing away, and they don't want to think about that. Well, you know what? We're not going to leave this world alive. We all are going to pass away. We all are going to get ill. Something is going to happen. And the thing is, I think my thing is to say to them, like, your family needs to know. Your family needs to know if you've got things taken care of because it's so stressful on them if they don't. And I mean, it's not just about elderly people as well. It's young people with families, with assets, you know, with a business, with whatever. It's everybody. And I can't stress enough how stressful it is for family members when nothing is done and nothing is put in writing. And they have enough stress already, you know, seeing their loved one in that position. It's just so hard. I understand where you're coming from to talk to somebody about it. I don't know. I always put it in the situation to say, well, you know, if you're just going out with your friends shopping and you have a car accident, you're ending up in the hospital and you can't talk to anybody. Your family is there and they need to know some information. What do you do? How do you deal with that? How did the family know? And then they're going to think, well, yeah, maybe they should know. Yeah, whatever. But it's just such a, yeah, it's a touchy subject, very touchy.
It certainly sounds like it. And I think you hit on a very good point. Younger people with young children to think about, you know, if both parents should die at the same time without wills, then the future of those children is in huge jeopardy if you haven't appointed guardians and made your wishes known. So that's, yeah, very good point. Yes. So how many, if you were to look at the general population, how many, excuse me, what percentage should I say of the population are as prepared as you're talking about, and or are the vast majority totally unprepared?
You know, I was just on a website the other day and oh my gosh, where was it? I was looking at, according to the Will Canada, I guess I was on that website to check out some information. And as of 2021, 60% of Canadians do not have a will.
60%.
60%.
Wow.
And I have talked to doctors and ministers and people in high positions. And when I asked them about it, they would lower their head and say, oh my God, you know, I haven't even got mine done. I mean, I don't understand, especially with the viruses that's out there today. And many people are in the hospital. I don't understand why there are not more people getting it done.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy.
that is high. You're right there. I think people get complacent as well. You know, you'll hear from my accent, I haven't been in Canada all my life. I lived in Africa most of my life and in some, let's just say, politically unstable and fairly dangerous places. And the awareness that your life could end very soon was much more closer to one's mind there than it is here. And I would say most people had wills because of that, because they were seeing friends get killed suddenly, unexpectedly. It really brought it home to us. So anyway, let's hope more people wake up. Back to Kathleen.
You know what's surprising? I was just talking to a friend of mine today, and she's her husband was in the armed forces, and she said, "Mark, do you know as soon as somebody joins the army, from 17 years old and up, they automatically have their will done? Automatically."
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Interesting. So. Yeah. Margaret, where where should like if you were to instruct somebody as to where they should keep these documents, do you have any suggestions as to where someone should keep them in the home and who they should share it with?
I think they should share it with whatever family member they want to put in charge of their assets or in charge of their inheritance or estate. Some people have a power of attorney. Some people have a special person that they've talked to about it. But here's what I do. I include this with my just in case. It's a file folder, and I have all the personal documents will go together in one area. So everything to do with life insurance, medical insurances, passwords, you name it, put in one area. And like the executor is the person that has to take care of everything, make sure everything's taken care of. So if you appoint somebody in the executor position, let them know everything is in my just in case kit. But now, make sure you keep it all together in one place.
Right. And if somebody has agreed to be a power of attorney for someone, would you suggest that they get a copy of that document?
Well, they could, but they don't have to. Like most of this stuff it's there. And if something happens, this is where it's, go get it from there. I mean, I don't know if they really need to, but they could. I mean, it's up to the individual how secure they are with their information to give it to, because I mean, things change constantly too. So that person that might be in power of attorney might change. So I would keep everything together in my kit and just say, if something happens, when something happens, go there.
Okay.
So then
Good one. And for the benefit of our audience who are listening to this on one of our audio channels, what Margaret was talking about was a very sturdy file folder that would hold a number of life assurance policies, all your personal documents, will, etc., that can be securely closed, and it has a label on the front so that it's easily identifiable, and that's part of her kit, and she'll be talking a bit more about that later. So that was the benefit of people couldn't actually see it while you were holding it up. So what was I going to say? In you have your kit, so are they completely legal, and could they be contested? I think the answer is anything can be contested, so that's perhaps superfluous. What's your experience?
Correct. Anything can be contested. I've never had any problems with my kits. I've talked to people that have had them and have gone through the bank information, have gone through everything. There's never been a problem. Wills are sometimes people say you can write them down on a piece of paper. As long as they're signed and witnessed, it's legal. This is a little more in depth. It gives you a very simple, put together file that they could just fill in to whatever information is pertinent to them. So I made it very simple, and there should be no issues with it.
Good, thanks, Mark. Quick one on executors. Does an executor have to have some legal backing to be appointed, or not necessarily?
I was the executor of my mother's estate. Very responsible job. Like, you are responsible to make sure everything is taken care of. All of her wishes are done. All the bills are paid. Things are, done that way. The thing is, people don't realize too that if somebody passes away, your bank account could be automatically closed.
Right.
So then try to get into this account to pay for funeral costs or any other cost is very difficult. So that's why having a joint account is very important as well. So somebody can get into that account to pay for any bills that needs to be taken care of.
Sure. No, thank you for that.
So can you explain what services you provide for your clients?
Well, actually, just giving them the will kits and everything. So like what I do, I can sit down with them, go over the details, how to go about filling things out. I provide a free copy of the will and power of attorney. It's a Canadian will and it's free. I provide a book, which in my book goes through my personal story, and it goes into more in-depth details of all the things that people need to put in their just-in-case kits. As you say, it's just registrations, vehicles, homes, mortgages, phone numbers, doctors' information, there's so much more that needs to be put together. So when somebody goes to your kit, it's all there, passwords, online accounts, so many things. So I provide that. I provide forms for them to fill in as well that can, give all their medical, all their information, the wishes and instructions, how they want things done. So I include that. I include a medical information card, and I also include the kit that I showed you earlier, or a file folder to put everything in together, to keep it all in one place. So you're not struggling looking for all kinds of different things. So yeah, I provide that.
Very good. I got to tell you, when we were talking about where to keep the documents, there's an old lady from the church that I'm involved in, asked me to be an executive of her estate, and she has all the documents in a great big jar in the fridge, because she was told that if you put it in the fridge and your house catches fire, it's not going to burn. So she thought that was a safe place to put it. And I said, no, not quite sure what the moisturists may do if the fridge defrosts. But
Some
at
people
least
may do that.
I know where to find it. So
True.
an interesting
Some
one.
people put it in a safety deposit box.
Yes, also good idea. Yeah. So Margaret, here's another one. And because of my having family in many countries overseas, what special advice would you have for Canadians who, like me, have relatives overseas who may be elderly relatives who they might need to get involved with winding up their estates? Is there anything special they should think about?
Keep your passports up to date.
Mm-hmm.
Always make sure your passports are up to date. Some people have family members that 6 months in Florida, whatever. But
Yes.
when or if something should happen, they have to fly down to bring them back home. Make sure your passports are up to date. That's one of the things I really stress.
Good point. Good point.
Right.
And something that tied into that, if you have a case like me, for instance, where I moved from one country to another and my will was originally made in the other country, are wills transferable to different countries? Does it affect the legality of them or not?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I can answer that one.
Well, I can partly answer it myself. I've been told that because mine was very simple and straightforward, it would be valid in Canada. If it dealt with, for instance, the disposal of stocks and shares in a Canadian company, it might not be, and I might then be advised to get a new will done here. So it's something that people perhaps should think about and look at.
Well, I know in different provinces, things are different. So
Yes.
for instance, the Canadian, like the will here and powers of attorney in Ontario could be different than down east or out west.
Mhm.
So I have downloaded different copies from all over different provinces so that if there's an issue there, I can send them the copy from, say, Newfoundland or out west.
Right. Right.
So they are different.
I know from another organization I'm involved with, the BC medical directive form giving you power to have a say or influence your elderly relatives' medical treatment is quite different to the one in Ontario. In fact, it's unique. There isn't one in Ontario, as far as I know. You have to go power of attorney. Sorry, Kathleen, you were going to say something, and I, as usual, jumped in ahead of you. I do apologize.
Not at all, Peter. So one of the things I found very interesting is something you said earlier, Margaret, and that is common law spouses are not entitled to anything unless they're specifically named in the will.
Yes. That surprised me as well. I've heard stories over the years that somebody had passed away without a will and they were still married, but living common law with another spouse. And when that happened, apparently everything went to the first family. And the second family, the common law family, got nothing. So
I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's, again, it's protecting people, it's protecting your family, protecting your loved ones, and then making sure that they're going to get what you want them to get.
Sure. And it's not just having the will, it's keeping it up to date as your circumstances change. That example you just given, for instance. Yeah.
Right.
Very important.
Yes. Well, Margaret, we're running low on time. How do people contact you?
Well, I do have a website. It's just fairly new now. So it's margarethigh.ca. And on my website, it'll be my phone number and my email address. And one thing I need to actually reaffirm what you said earlier, keep a list of people's names and phone numbers, because that was so important. A friend of mine passed away, and had he not done that, I wouldn't have known it, wouldn't been able to attend his funeral. So
Yep.
that is an important thing as well.
That's
Very
great.
good. Very good.
Well, thank you so
Thank you.
much for being on the show today, Margaret. I think this is such important information. I'm thinking our audience will be happy to have heard your story too. And thank you also very much for tuning in once again. And we would love to hear from you. Peter and I would love to hear from you and have you on the show. So don't hesitate to reach out. Until next time, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you
Thank you,
very
Margaret.
much.